He lives 2 houses. He lives on the corner house, and then he lives down the street.
Maybe that part.
They're working.
Afternoon. The Memphis Landmarks Commission is hereby called to order for its regularly scheduled meeting of May 25th, 2023. My name is Cindy Tucker, and I'm the chair of the commission. Mr. Brett Ragsdale serves as the executive director of the commission. Mr. Ragsdale, may I get a roll call?
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Gill?
Here.
Ms. Love?
Here.
Ms. Strong?
Here.
Mr. Winter?
Present.
Chair Tucker?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. The Memphis Landmarks Commission and the local historic district provide provisions are established to ensure preservation of structures that are of historic value to Memphis. Our function is to preserve significant resources, enhance community pride, and foster civic beauty and ensure compatibility within designated historic districts. The Commission is authorized to review projects and determine their appropriateness based on the design review guidelines. At this point, I would like to swear in the staff. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Thank you. May I get a motion to approve the minutes from the last month's meeting? From one of you guys?
Madam Chair, I motion that we approve the minutes
Okay.
from last month's meeting.
Okay. Could I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, motion passes. Mr. Secretary, please provide us a secretary's report if there is one this month, and then explain the procedure of this meeting.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to note one item from the agenda. Item number 1 is a hold for this month, so we won't hear that. And I would also like to make a couple of announcements. First of all, I'd like to thank Mr. Robert Harris, who was an intern with us for the past several months and has done several BOA and land control board cases and also helped us out a lot with the landmarks cases. And we'll miss him. He's moving on to other things or maybe still here in Memphis. So we appreciate all the hard work and the help with everything. And welcome our newest commissioner, Mr. Michael Winter. Thank you for joining us. We're happy to have you here with us and to join the commission. And Michael is a local architect, and he's also on the Downtown Memphis Commission Design Review Board. So that's going to be a good tie-in with the cases that we see here that are in the Downtown Landmarks Commissions. So welcome to Mr. Winter. Now I will go into the procedures for the meeting. I will introduce each case as listed on the agenda. Copies of the agenda are found on the right podium. For each case, staff with the Division of Planning and Development will give a presentation. At the conclusion of the staff presentation, the applicant will have 5 minutes to present his or her case. After the applicant's presentation, the commission will hear first from those speakers in support of the application, then from those speakers in opposition to the application, and the speakers will have 3 minutes each. And then finally, the applicant will have a 3-minute rebuttal period. These times do not include time for questions from and answers to members of the commission. The chair may provide additional time, provided both sides are given an equal amount of additional time. All parties who wish to provide testimony to the commission will be sworn in by the chair. If a member of the audience wishes to provide testimony in support of or in opposition to a particular case on today's agenda, he or she will need to fill out speaker's cards for the record. Speaker's cards are available at the front podium. Once filled out, speaker's cards can be submitted to any PD planner at the left podium. We do not need speaker's cards from the applicants since their names are already part of the record. After all parties have been heard, the commission will close the public hearing, make a motion, and then deliberate on the case. All motions made by the commission will be in the affirmative. The bylaws governing the commission require the affirmative vote of a majority of attending members to approve an application. The commission may also vote to hold an application for a period of 1 month. Madam Chair, I submit that all cases have been filed in proper order, all applicants have been notified of this hearing, and all notice requirements have been fulfilled.
Okay, thank you. At this point, the commission will establish a consent agenda. To establish the consent agenda, the secretary will call out each eligible case. If any member of the audience or the commission objects to a case being placed on the consent agenda, he or she should do so by a show of hands when the secretary reads the case. Once the consent agenda is established, the commission will vote on all cases placed on the agenda as a whole and will not hold individual public hearings on this case. Mr. Secretary, which items are on our agenda, consent agenda?
Item number 7, COA 2023-060-516 Stonewall Street. Item number 8, COA 2023-061-1418 Snowden Avenue. Item number 10, COA 2023-065-1432 Harvard Avenue. And item number 11, COA 2023-067-989 Stonewall Street.
Okay, thank you. May I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as established by the secretary?
Madam Chair, a motion that we approve the consent agenda as established by the secretary.
Okay, thank you. Could I have a second?
Second.
Okay. I would like to remind the commission that by voting on the consent agenda, he or she affirms that he or she has read the staff report and is in full agreement with the conditions. Mr. Secretary, may I get a roll call?
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Winter?
Approve.
You were not actually at the meeting, but you can still.
Yeah, I did read the reports.
Okay. Okay. Well, I'll get Ms. Boyd then. Ms. Love?
Yes.
Ms. Strong?
Yes.
Mr. Gill?
Yes.
And let the record show that Ms. Boyd has joined us. And Ms. Boyd, we are voting on the minutes.
Consent agenda.
I'm sorry, the consent agenda.
Here.
Okay, I've got this all messed up, so. Ms. Boyd, we're voting on the consent agenda.
I'm sorry.
The consent agenda?
We're voting on the consent. Do you approve? He's asking for it.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Motion carries.
If you're here for any of the cases just listed on the consent agenda, you have been approved. You don't need to remain for the remainder of the meeting, but are welcome to stay for the remainder if you'd like. At this point, I would like to state that the minor COA applications as listed on the agenda have been received and approved by the commission. The commission will now continue with the regular hearing of the major COA applications as listed on the agenda. Mr. Secretary, please call the first case.
Item number 2, COA 2023-027-971 Roselle Street.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Will the applicant please come forward to the podium? Raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you. Would you state your name and address, please?
Edith Doshier, 971 Roselle.
Okay, thank you. Have you seen the conditions on the report, the staff report?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you agree with the staff report and its conditions?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. We have 2 in opposition. Let's go to the staff report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Aisha Penzes, Division of Planning and Development. Item before you is a COA request for new construction and exterior alterations for window and door replacement and site improvements to install a new fence at 971 Roselle Street in Roselle and Zell Historic District. Subject property is a 1-story gable front bungalow built in 1910s. So the original condition of the structure is shown in these photos from January 2022. the applicant initially started construction without getting a COA approval and building permits and received a stop work order from the code enforcement due to work being done without approvals. Since then, they actually removed the proposed second floor addition that was located at the front of the house. And when we met with the applicant, she agreed to restore the front facade of the house to its original condition. So here you can see the staff photos that reflect the current situation with the second floor addition removed and the front porch going to be restored. Here's another photo view from Roselle Street. And the applicant provided this proposed front elevation, which mimics the original condition of the structure. However, we conditioned to have a detailed front and other elevations to be submitted before the COA is issued. So the proposed second floor addition and the rear addition do not actually meet the district design guidelines. And one of the conditions also recommended removal of the rear addition, which is not architecturally compatible with the original style of the structure. Also, the application did not provide any details regarding the proposed fence. We also added another condition to applicant to provide a detailed site plan with fence details. So based on these, we recommended approval with 10 conditions for exterior alterations for window and door replacements and site improvements to install a new fence. This concludes my staff presentation. I would be happy to answer any questions.
Does staff have questions? I mean, the commissioners have questions for staff. Okay, all right, thank you. Do you understand, you have a time to speak now if you want to speak on what she has said?
I understand what
You
she's
understand?
saying. Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
Okay, all right, thank you. Well, at this time, we have a couple of people that are in opposition. So if you want to sit for a second, you'll have a time to come back and speak after they do.
Okay.
Okay, so Vicki Moore. Could you raise your right hand, please? You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes.
Would you state your name and address?
Vicki Moore, 985 Roselle.
Okay, thank you. You have 3 minutes to present your case.
Okay. I live at 985 Roselle, and the home that I'm opposing to, Ms. Dozier, 971 Roselle, the property there, I want to know what her intent is with the home. She doesn't live there. I just want to know what her intent is with the home, because it has been rumored that she wants to make a rooming house out of it. And our street is a single-family home where we live. My mom has been there. My parents bought the home 50 years. Our street full of elderly people. There are several of us have moved back home to take care of our parents, and we want it to stay that way. We don't want our property value going down. We take pride in our property. And what she's proposing to do, that's why I asked, what is her intent? But I heard it was for a rooming house. And there are violations within there because it's a school. There's a bus. The kids go to Idlewild, and the bus stop is right beside that house. So if you're having a rooming house, you don't know what type of people you're going to have there. So that's a violation, a Tennessee violation, code violation already. And Also, the thing about it is, it needs to be demolished. I saw the picture up there that's what it's supposed to be, but she's owned the house for so many years. It's never, nothing's been done to it. We've been trying to see what was going to be done. And I just want to make sure that a rooming house is not there. Miss Dozier had turned the back of the house to the rear of the house. She put a front on the back. And I'm thinking that it was done to make it a secret that that's what she was doing. So whoever she rent to could come in from the back and we wouldn't know it. But we are a close neighborhood and we watch and keep everything part of the neighborhood association. So that's I'm interested in knowing if she was going to rent the house to one person or something like that, a family, that would be fine. But intending on renting for a rooming house, that's totally unacceptable for us in that neighborhood.
Okay, thank you. Do the commissioners have a question? Wait 1 second, ma'am. Do you have any questions for the speaker? Questions for the speaker? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Laura Taylor. Would you raise your right hand? Thank you. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you. Would you state your name and address, please?
My name is Laura Taylor, and my mother's address is 995 Roselle, And I'm back and forth over there all the time to make sure that, that she's okay.
Okay, what is your permanent address?
3406 Coleman Road.
Okay. All right, thank you.
38128.
Okay, thank you. You have 3 minutes.
And my mom has been there for over 50 years. And I actually wrote a petition regarding this and had some of the other neighbors to sign, and I do have those with me here today, saying that we definitely did not want it to be a rooming house. We want it to be a single-family home because we don't want that neighborhood to change. We don't want our elderly parents to have to basically calling us times of the night or morning saying that someone has stolen something, someone has broken into their house, or someone's at the door and they don't know who it is or whatever. We don't know. And I'm not saying that that's the type of people that would be there, but sometimes because of if you want it to be a rooming house and if you're not basically selecting the people that you're placing in there, you're basically just renting to whoever can afford to pay, that sometimes you may not have the people that you would be best for that neighborhood.
Okay, thank you. Did y'all have any questions for her? Okay, all right, thank you so much.
Okay.
Okay, and you can come up if you'd like to. Yes, ma'am. Would you like to address any of?
Yeah, I would just like to say I'm not sure where they're getting that I'm turning it into a rooming house, where that came from. I'm actually from Arlington, Tennessee, and I bought a couple of pieces of property, and that was one of them. That area needs a lot of work as far as the houses in the area. And so that particular house, I'm actually not knowing what I'm going to do with it just yet. I spent some time trying to renovate it because it was full of termites, so it was actually falling in, caving in, so I repaired it, but I'm definitely not going to turn it into a rooming house. I'm not sure really what I'm going to do with it just yet, but I do need to renovate it and get it going, and so that was just what I've been doing with it.
Okay, thank you. Do y'all have any questions?
I have some questions.
Oh.
Are they correct that you started this work without a building permit?
That is correct.
And you started it without coming to get, you didn't submit anything to OPD prior, per your protective district,
That is
per your
correct.
land ministry. Did you know that you had bought a residence in a landmarks district?
I did not.
Gotcha. Are you do you fully agree to the conditions that staff has suggested?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Basically, I'm understanding that it needs to be returned to its original structure, and that's what I'm planning on doing.
And then has anyone lived in there since, it looks like you bought it in 2015?
Right, and as I said, I have quite a few pieces of property that I'm actually working on, and I'm renovating these properties myself. And so with the assistance of a couple of contractors, some show and some don't, so I've had to do it myself. So this is one house where I've been doing a lot of yard work and just trying to keep it afloat because people have been vandalizing the house a lot. They've broken into it and they've stolen lights and just different things they've done to that house over in that area.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
I am curious about,
Let's go this, yeah, we'll go one, because she has one too. You go.
all right, thank you. I am curious about the elevation that you have submitted from, I guess it's the Sullivan, is that?
Sullivan Home Plans.
Sullivan Home Plans, that one. I know you said you're basically considering taking it back to its original structure, and as of now, that particular front elevation doesn't match the original structure. Are you submitting that they will revise this particular proposed elevation to match?
Correct.
Fabulous. So if that's something that we could add to our conditions to make sure that they do it to that degree, that would be wonderful. So thank you.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Just for the record, you do realize now that Roselle Annisdale is a local landmarks district.
I do.
You do know that if you do any work on the exterior that's visible from the public right-of-way, you must get a certificate of appropriateness.
Correct.
Okay. And my next question to you is, what was the rationale behind moving the door or the entrance on the front facade to the rear of the property?
Actually, I was trying to mirror it to front. I actually didn't look at it that way. I was trying to, I know the back was falling in, and I was just coming up with something actually all on my own. And I led myself astray. So now that I know better, I'm going to do different. And so I can honestly cannot tell you what the rationale was.
And my next question, have you read the design guidelines for Roselle Annisdale? Have you read the design guidelines for Roselle Annisdale?
What? Say that again, I'm sorry.
Have you read the design guidelines for Roselle Annisdale?
Yes,
The
ma'am.
historic guidelines now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And you also said you're from Arlington and you've purchased more properties in the city of Memphis, correct?
Correct.
Have you checked to make sure have you checked whether those properties are located in the local landmarks district?
They actually aren't, but I haven't done anything to any of the other properties this extreme.
Okay, so I'm just suggesting that for the properties that you do own in the city of Memphis, that you check to see whether they are located in the local landmarks district, and you familiarize yourself with those design guidelines, and you make sure that you get a COA.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Okay, and you do fully understand, this does not actually come under us, that you're not going to put a boarding house in there?
Oh, no, ma'am. I did not plan to use that as a boarding or rooming house. I'm not sure where that came from because I don't know anyone over there. Nobody talks to me over there. So to have a major conversation based on a rumor when no one has actually asked me what my plans were, I'm not sure where that came from.
I would like to just say that since that's not really under our purview, we probably shouldn't even conversate about that. We're just dealing with the design of the home as it is.
All right.
Correct.
But you do, or you recognize that the zoning for the property is single-family residence, right?
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Guys? Anything? Okay. Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll now close the public hearing portion of this case, and the commissioners will further discuss it between ourselves. Can I have a motion?
I make a motion to approve this COA as written, so we can further this on to discussion.
Okay, can I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, this is for the purpose of discussion. Okay,
She's agreed to do what staff has asked. We heard it because there was opposition. I don't have an issue. Don't love the way it went about, don't like how the baby was born, but the baby's born now.
I do agree with Ms. Love Selena's suggestion about getting updated site design or renderings. So I do agree that should be added as a condition.
you do what, add?
I agree that it should be added as a condition because the drawing or rendering that's in the application does not match the property. I do agree.
Okay. So did you want to add before we make a vote, or does anybody else want to say?
Madam Chair, if I may, I believe a couple of the conditions separately address Commissioner Love's concern about bringing the structure back to its original condition. I believe her concern was about the roof and the roof form. The first staff condition actually requests the roof of the front of the structure and porch to match the original. And I believe following that, we have condition number 9, which requires a detailed set of drawings showing all elevations prior to issuance of the COA. So I believe
Is that pretty much?
staff conditions as they're written covers everything that
Okay.
you are concerned about.
You're okay with that? Okay, so I think we're fine.
I think we're good.
Have a vote?
Yeah.
Ms. Boyd?
Yes.
Mr. Gill? Yes. Ms. Love?
Yes.
Ms. Strong?
Yes.
Mr. Winter?
Yes.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
The chair?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Okay, would you call the next case?
Yes, it's item number 3, COA 2023-030, 1884 Nelson Avenue.
Is applicant present? Could you come up, please? Would you raise your right hand? Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
State your name and address.
My name is Trevor Day. I represent the applicant. My permanent address is 271 Duncan Drive, Pawtucket, Tennessee.
Okay, have you read the staff report?
Yes.
Are you in agreement with the staff and its conditions?
Not all of them, but most of them, except one, the gable. I call them the gable. The window, we don't like the recommendation on that due to cost.
Okay, could we see the staff report first, please?
All right, Lucas Skinner with the Division of Planning and Development. Again, the item before you is COA 2023-30, This is the 1884 Nelson in the Cooper Young Historic District. The request includes exterior alterations for the replacement of windows in the front door, as well as painting the exterior, and then also site improvements to replace the perimeter fence. Again, the applicant is Mr. Hector Campos, represented by Mr. Day. So as you see before you, these pictures were of the condition of the home up until about probably roughly this time last year. The property was built in sometime between 1915 and 1920. It's a one-story fairly typical bungalow with a monitor. Windows are all double hung, one over one. So to kind of get it to current day, again, the structure's been painted. Most of the rafter tails have been removed, but primarily the railing or balustrade in the front has been removed, and the windows, the front windows there on the front porch, originally were set of 3 and now are a set of 2. So in terms of meeting the district guidelines, the fencing, in terms of that, absolutely meets. They just would like a 6-foot wood fence. The guidelines don't speak necessarily to painting the masonry. So really, the predominant bulk of the request does meet the guidelines. However, a few of the key features that have been removed are addressed in the guidelines. So with that, we're recommending approval with 4 conditions. The first, essentially to replace the already replaced windows back to the original, to have a set of 3 windows rather than 2. The second condition would be to remove the front gable skirting to further expose the front brackets. Condition 3, if needed by building code, just that any front porch railing or balustrade just be brick and resemble any of the previous. And then our typical change or deviation condition. And so I believe Mr. Day really is contesting condition 1 with the windows. So with that, I'm available for any questions.
Okay, thank you. Commission have questions for staff?
Yeah, Mr. Skinner, I don't hate this completed product, but it probably doesn't meet the criteria of, how did we get this far down in this improvement before, this looks complete.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is. Yeah, I mean, there just weren't no permits or anything. We just didn't catch it.
Got you. But there was a building permit. There was no building permit, and there was no COA, obviously.
Correct.
Wow.
I have a question for staff. Can you discuss what the design guidelines for this area discuss about the windows relevant to the first condition? Is there a requirement to replace them 1 for 1?
So typically, I believe that the windows, Cooper Young is fairly open. Typically, as long as you're not changing the opening of the window, I believe that's really what they're looking for. So they try to be a little more
open. Okay, yes. So let me ask a clarifying question. Was the rough opening of the window changed? And we just see, is it the same rough opening with different windows?
Yes, it is. It's the same. From what we can tell, the opening has not changed. They just added that thicker middle trim piece to separate the 2 rather than having the 3.
So maybe we can ask the applicant, did you change the rough opening of the window size?
The real estate agent on this one, when I was told by the owner, and his contractor said they did not change it, they just put the new frame in. They didn't change any of the brick and work, they just replaced the rotten wood and put the new windows in.
And what's the material of the new windows?
My understanding, he did a 3-panel, if I understand you correctly.
No, the material of the windows, is it wood, vinyl?
My understanding is vinyl.
Okay.
It's like a composite vinyl. It's a weird new thing.
Gotcha. Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? Do we have any opposition?
We do not.
Okay. Did you have another statement that you would like to make?
No, we just didn't. We worked with the closing attorney. He did not tell us this was a historic district.
Nobody knew it was an historic district?
No. And so we bought it. My client bought it. I was the purchase agent. I was the buyer agent on that side. And we recently just took it off the market to figure out exactly what we can do next before we put it back on the market.
Has anyone that's worked on this project done any other work in a historic district, to your knowledge? Do you know?
To my
or
knowledge,
owned
no.
any properties in another historic district?
To my knowledge, I've been told the owner has no knowledge of being a historic district. I cannot say I'm the contractor because I've never met the contractor directly.
So you're a real estate agent?
Yes.
Got you.
And I told Lucas, I visited last month, and I did tell him, it's like, you guys need to talk to Mar and make this like a required class. I learned a lot last month.
Got you. I understand.
A lot of historic districts out there.
Yes, and his staff taught me how to use, I think it's Adult 901, taught me how to use that website before we make an offer on a property. So, yeah.
How long ago did the work start on this house?
My understanding, we bought it about 18 months ago.
18 months ago?
If my memory serves me right.
Did we have a picture? Because I wouldn't look of what it used to look like.
Yeah, I said the Google Street imagery is from March
Thank
of last year, but I mean, you can tell they probably were already doing some interior work or like landscaping work from the dumpster.
So that dumpster, we bought it from a previous client, the previous owner, who got it over his head. He bought it from REO, and he got over his head. We bought that, and it took us over 18 months roughly to finish the work, the inside.
It's incredible you didn't have to get a building permit, or that you didn't get a building permit.
My understanding, he went to a place on White Station, farm, near Shelby Farms, and did some paperwork with them about removing some walls. And that was about 16, 17 months ago.
Got you.
So I don't know why we didn't get a notification from that point.
Got you.
So why? I figured you guys were the same people, code enforcer and historic district. So I'm learning that that's not the case all the time.
And each historic district have their own guidelines. So
Yes.
you'll know what we're doing here doesn't stand for every historic district.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm meeting with Lucas later. I'm putting an offer on our property, Speedway Terrace, so he's going to help me meet with the historic president over there.
Appreciate you keeping an open mind to learning the process.
No, I mean, it's very, very unique. I think it's something good that the city has this. Because architect, I grew up in Bartlett. Everything's cookie cutter. I mean, if the garage is on the left side, I know the master room is on the right side, and vice versa. And I like the fact that you guys are preserving the uniques of each zone, each district.
Yeah, because the districts, the people that live there over the course of the years have worked very hard on putting these. We don't put these guidelines together, they did. And
Yeah.
we're here to uphold what they put together for us.
Correct.
And for themselves.
That's what Lucas taught me. I thought historic district is just like a club, a group of people live together and hang out and barbecue. And I just learned that's not the case. So I learned that's not. I learned it's more powerful than HOA in a lot of ways.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question. I have a question, Madam Chair.
Any more?
Yeah. So have you read the design guidelines for Cooper Young? Are you familiar with them now?
That one I did not. I forwarded to him and his contractor.
No, I'm asking, have you read them?
No, I have not.
And you also mentioned purchasing a property in Speedway Terrace, which is another local landmarks district.
Yes.
Are you going to familiarize yourself with their local landmark, their neighborhood design guidelines?
Lucas is going to help me meet with the Speedway historic president and send me the guidelines on that one.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is that anybody else?
I just have it's a real simple question.
Yeah.
The current existence of the property, did it occur to you that it does not look historical at all?
So you asked me as my opinion as a historic agent?
Yeah, the current
real estate
condition,
agent?
the current condition of the property, does it reflect the historical significance of the other properties within Cooper Young?
I feel the color does not. Some of the designs, that's one thing I don't think I think it's called a gable, the number 2, does not fit that. But, I mean, I would never paint a house that color, my personal opinion, but that's my clients. And I am more into keeping the brick red. Brick is red from the factory, keep it red. But I understand the new trend now is with a lot of families to paint the brick, which I think is a waste of money. But that's my opinion.
And the changes that you made, particularly as it relates to the balustrade, that didn't have any significance to you?
That, to me, as a real estate agent, will have significance. I think as a real estate agent, when a home is more closer to what is originally built, it adds value to the home. That's just my bias. My dad's an archaeology major, so I have a little history bias, historic bias with that. But my client built this, and remodel it based on what he think will make it sell faster. In his opinion, that's why he went with that.
Thank you.
I'm just going to piggyback off of my commissioner's comment. As a real estate agent, especially looking in historic neighborhoods, you might want to think about advising your clients about what happens after you paint brick. You can never take that back. And also it becomes a maintenance issue. So I appreciate your comments about the color and the original nature of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it might look good for a while, about a couple of years.
I mean,
You have to paint it.
my understanding, when you paint a brick, with the new fat, it's lasts 5 years, and then it goes back to the original. Everybody wants to back to the original for 20, 30, 40 years. So I'm pretty sure this fat is going to go away soon.
Okay. Are we, any more? Okay, I'm going to close the public portion of this.
Hold on, Cindy.
Okay.
I just want to say I appreciate you coming here. I know this isn't actually you directing this work, and you're kind of under fire for something that your client has pushed. But I think in this aspect, this is a really great educational moment, even for you, where you can just tell the rest of your clients, please don't do this. These are the things that will happen. And
It'd be nice to just create a little historic board certification for MAR, so I can put that on my signature, or my email signature. But yeah, thanks.
So with that, do you know if your client, I know you just pinpointed the fact that the gable might be something that would be a little bit more difficult to do, but is that your opinion, or is this just something that your client has pushed?
I think the gable, he doesn't have a problem with. It's the windows, the 3-panel windows, changing all that due to cost. We believe the cost on the windows, the quotes, since the last time I was here, the quotes we got extremely high. On the gable, it was dirt cheap. It's not even.
Okay, so that could possibly even be a learning experience for your clients. Don't just go and do that on your own without getting approval, and because of that, you have to deal with this. So I just wanted to see where your mind is, or where your client's mind is for this particular.
His mind's okay with the gable.
Yeah.
He thinks the cost on that is not a big deal, and Lucas kind of helped prove his point over his wife. So I didn't want to get too much in a marriage discussion about it, but you guys can do that.
Yeah.
But his wife liked that look, and he did not. So
yeah, I will say the one thing that probably hurts my heart mostly about this is that it was actually registered as a contributing building to this neighborhood, which is why we are being a little bit more nailed down on certain things, wanting to make sure that whatever we can correct can be corrected as much as possible. So just so you know, that's just information you take back with yourself. But
I know about the windows. He drove through the neighborhood and saw a bunch of similar windows. So he just hey, everybody, that's what the crowd going with, and that's what he did. I was like, did the crowd jump off the cliff? He jumped the cliff. So yeah, that's what happens sometimes.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, now we good? Okay, now I'll close the public portion of this hearing. The commissioners will further discuss this case. May I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve with the recommendations from staff.
Second. Okay. Discussion?
Yeah, so I'll start. I'll echo Commissioner Love's comments. We do appreciate your investment in the neighborhood, your client's investment in the neighborhood. My general feeling is that this has been it's not necessarily a sensitive renovation. It's almost been sanitized, to your comments earlier. And so my preference, my suggestion is to keep the condition regarding replacing the windows to go back from 2 to 3. Because I think, in my opinion, and it is a professional opinion, you've removed, or your client has removed, too much of the original character. So the balustrade, the clipped gable end, the rafter tails, sorry. The paint, thank you. That actually was the first thing that caught my attention. And I think given all of those things collectively, I think we need to claw back some of the historical nature.
Actually, each other.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Agreed with some of the historical nature of it. And it's really interesting because I believe the design of this home as it's showing right now would almost be our version of a contemporary interpretation of the current styles that exist. So if this was a new construction, this would be fine. This would be absolutely fine. But unfortunately, it's the whole erasure of the character, the items that created most of that character for this particular qualifying contributing home to this neighborhood is where it kind of goes awry, which encourages me to accept all the conditions as presented by the staff.
I do have one
Sure,
quick
what you can do
question.
with the paint, so it's just like, I mean, at least it's not a horrible color.
True, but it is trendy. Be prepared to repaint that again soon, I'm sure. I want one clarification to ask of staff. Condition number 2, it says the front gable roof skirting shall be removed to further expose the front brackets. Are we talking about the clipped end?
Yeah, I'm glad you're asking. We're trying to get, oh gosh, sorry. These pieces of wood right here, since they removed the clip, I think the intent was to put it back to try and make it look like a clip, but every other, there's a gable on every other part of the roof, so we felt it would be okay to just open it and expose it more rather than just trying. So really, we just need to remove those pieces of wood.
I think in this case, if you look at the underside, they actually have it flat, like it would have still been the clip, so you wouldn't have seen that. So it was, since from what I understand, they were stating that they could very easily put that clip back. So I think we should just put the clip back the way it originally was, or go ahead and form that underside of the soffit.
That's fine. The condition is just to remove the wood. So if you would like a clip, you're welcome to add that, but we don't have that conditioned.
Yeah, I would agree. If the wood's removed, at least the soffit needs to be finished.
Because right now it's not.
Yeah, so we can update that in the condition.
Yeah, plus if you look at the Cooper Young Association Development Committee letter, there's quite a few things that they have asked, which are included in the staff report, in the staff requests.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the reason, that's a good point. The reason I asked about the clarification on condition 2 is because at first when I read it, I thought it was addressing the rafter tails on the monitor, which the Cooper Young letter addresses. But, if we address just the front porch, I feel like in the windows, I feel like that at least addresses some of those items. It returns a little bit of that character that Commissioner Love discussed.
This is just a side question. We're not addressing the rafter tails now being covered at all, right? Like, that seems to be left alone.
We personally didn't feel, I've been on this block of Nelson like 1,000 times, and it's a solid 50-50 whether there are exposed and whether there aren't. So I think staff is of the opinion that from removing the rafter tails doesn't necessarily remove that. I mean, there's still a lot of exposed brackets that we feel still gives the same feel.
No, I think that's fine, because I think that's part of this whole negotiation. It's like, hey, we're okay with the rafter tails not being
Part of the whole negotiation is the paint.
That amount of paint,
That's
there's
in there.
nothing you can do.
That's the biggest thing.
That is
That's
a
big
huge
deal.
thing. But if we're going to do, like, just for instance, go ahead and change them windows, like, go ahead and get that clip gable or actually make it look right, because the choice of material, even at that gable, is not right. It's a vertical board and batten. I don't see that anywhere else.
You have like a T111.
Yeah, exactly, and painted. So just for the elements, if for all intents and purposes, I think the modification of 2 would serve the purpose for this building as much as we can help it out at this point.
It is truly a compromise because we don't get everything we want either.
No. Any more discussion? Okay.
Ready to vote?
Yes.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
So do we need to adjust the condition, or did you get it all about number 2?
Ed?
There wasn't
I couldn't.
a motion to change it, but if you would like, that's what I meant. If you would
Yeah.
like to, please
Discussion,
feel
if you
free.
don't,
But
So I'd like to amend the original motion to state for item number 2 about that front roof skirting definitely being removed, and to either restore the clipped gable or have the soffit match the current gable condition. Is that clear enough?
Yes.
Okay.
Without objection?
No objection.
Okay. Okay. All right, and so Mr. Walker? Yeah. Mr. Strong?
Yes.
Mr. Gill?
Yes.
Ms. Boyd?
Yes.
Ms. Love?
Yes.
Mr. Winter?
Yes.
And Chair Tucker?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Next case is item number 4, COA 2023-048, 1312 Tutwiler Avenue.
Is the applicant present? No applicant present. Okay, could you raise your right hand, please?
Terrence Wilson.
Oh,
So raise my hand.
that's okay. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. State your name and address.
Terrence Wilson.
Okay, thank you.
2014 Hubert, Memphis.
Thank you. Have you read the staff report?
I did.
Are you in agreement with the staff report and in its conditions?
Nope.
Okay. Would you want to make your report?
Yes. Hello, I'm Robert Harris. I'm with the Division of Planning and Development, and I'm presenting COA 2023-048. This is for 1312 Tutwiler Avenue in the Speedway Terrace Historic District. The request is for exterior alterations to replace exterior siding with vinyl and replace the windows. This is in response to a stop work order, ENF 2023-00613, which was issued on March 31st, 2023. The property owner is Mr. Terrence Wilson. And as you can see in the photos right here, these were from January 2022. And this is a good view of the side of that. And so this is retroactive. So this is what the house currently looks like before the stop work order was submitted. So does the project meet the district guidelines? In this district, exterior building materials should be consistent with surrounding structures and other historic properties in the neighborhood. Frequently used materials include brick, limestone, stucco, and clapboard siding. The use of a mixture of 2 or 3 of these materials is encouraged. Vinyl and aluminum siding should be avoided. And then per section 7.5, windows are not regulated by these guidelines, so he should be okay on that front. That's just a rehash of the proposal and how the vinyl siding should be avoided according to the district guidelines. So staff recommends approval with these 3 conditions. The siding should be made of appropriate materials such as wood or fiber cement with maximum 6-inch reveal. The second condition is the replacement windows shall match the existing in terms of number, location, and size. And should this be approved, any change or deviation from the approved certificate of appropriateness shall be submitted to the Memphis Landmarks Commission for review and approval. And this concludes my staff report.
Okay, thank you.
Do you have any questions of me?
No questions for staff? Okay, all right. Thank you. Okay, you have 5 minutes to.
Prior to these guidelines being put in place, this house, when I purchased it, those photos are this year, last year. But when I originally purchased this house, it had vinyl siding on all the way around it. And like I said, when I purchased this house, I didn't know anything about these guidelines. I didn't even know anything about this being a historical district, because I don't think it was a historical district at the time. All I did was, when I took the original siding off, I was just putting it back, trying to make it clean. We pressure washed it, prepped it for paint on the two sides. Here, yeah. You get this. Like I said, my original plan was to just fix it up as clean as possible, put back what was there. Like I said, it was already vinyl siding on there. And I was speaking to him, I don't know, I got a few neighbors who seem to have an issue, or take issue with this, but the original house, prior to those photographs that you guys are looking at, it was siding wrapped around the entire house. And like I said, I had no idea about this being a historical district and there being guidelines to replacing what was already there. If you look up the very top, some of it hadn't been taken off before I photographed it.
So you're saying there was?
Up at the very top, you see where it's like light blue? That's siding. That's vinyl siding that was on there.
On the side, was that where you have this sort of ripple effect happening? Was there some sort of fire damage or something that happened without that?
The board was
warped.
When we took it off, it took a while for, I've had two contractors on it. He took it off, and it took him a while to put it back on, so it got warped. So
in the pictures, it looks like there may have been a different material on the front or the side. When you bought the house, it looks like there's vinyl in the gable. What was on the main facade? It looks like it's probably a masonite lap siding.
Up underneath that?
No, sir, in the main facade.
So there was two different what? I think
the front
two different boards underneath that siding.
Okay, yeah. So in this picture, it looks like you've acknowledged that that's vinyl siding, but what was this original siding here?
I think that's two different boards. I don't know exactly what type of board to call it.
Yeah, I think it's
a different wood from what's on the side.
But it's not vinyl.
No.
Primarily my point.
No. That's what was underneath it after we tore the vinyl.
Oh, true. And it's not the original either, which is also a fair point.
A different board on the front than there is on the actual side of the house. So that's why I put, and then the back is totally different. If you look back there where that
there's real wood back there.
The breaker box is. You can see a different board back there than there is on the side. That's the reason why we just went ahead and put the siding on the back and in the very front.
Gotcha.
When did you buy the house? How long ago?
I think 15.
When?
2015, I think.
2015?
Yes, ma'am.
When did you start working on the house?
Off and on, like I said, it's been a while. And I'm guessing at the year. I've had it for a while now. But it's one of those things where, you're dealing with different contractors who, it's just a money game for them, so.
Okay. Did y'all have, go ahead.
I have a question for staff. Speedway Terrace Historic District, weren't they established in like 2020 or 2019? 2018? 2018? And thank you. And this is for the applicant, and you say you purchased the property in 2015?
I purchased a house from the county.
In 2015?
It was prior to all of this
Right.
being put in place.
But one of the things that happens when a neighborhood becomes a local landmarks district is that there are required millings to property owners.
I can barely hear you.
One of the things that happens when a neighborhood becomes a local landmarks district here is that there are required millings, multiple millings. You get millings to the property owner from the Landmarks Commission. You get millings to the property owner from land use control, because that's dealing with zoning. So are you saying that as a property owner who purchased this property in 2015, are you saying you never received a milling about this being a local landmarks district?
You know, you get that junk mail all the time. And that's, I'm not calling it junk, but I get mail all the time, and I assume, I saw where it was the conversation of making it a historical district, but I didn't participate. I didn't come down here, you know, it looked like a flyer that had a date on it. And if you want to come down here, and I didn't do that. I worked 2 jobs at the time. I didn't come down here and be a part of this whole process of what we can and what we can't do.
But you are acknowledging that you did receive the mailing. Thank you. I said, from what you just said, you just acknowledged that you received the mailing.
I received a flyer that said something about Speedway District. If you want to participate, come down here. Yeah, I saw that.
Thank you.
I remember seeing that.
Thank you.
But this whole thing about the guidelines, where do you get that information from? I still can't figure that out, because I have a house also north side of Valentine, and when I was here to get my get the permit, the COA, I spoke on that, and they told me that was in the historical district. But looking at the map that you guys have in place, it doesn't show that house is in the historical district, and so I'm looking at it's a conflict. Where do you get the information from? Where do you get the information on the guidelines?
From the Landmarks Commission, they're online, and probably from the Speedway Terrace Association.
Speedway.
A friend.
Speedway Terrace Historic District.org, and you can literally Google it.
I went on Speedway Historical District.
It says design guidelines right here. And they're on the Develop 901 site. It's the burden's on you, man.
Prior to, this right here, me being here is what I'm talking about. I didn't know anything about these guidelines these guys here were pissed off about was they were telling me that I should put my house back together the way they said that the guidelines were. I didn't know anything about that. I couldn't put it back. The vinyl siding that was like I said, I took some off and I was putting it back. That was it.
You're under there's a 9-page document it goes straight to the Shelby County. The burden's on you, plain and simple. So we should just go to a vote, unless y'all want to make any other changes to the house. Oh, I'm sorry, do we have opposition?
Yes, I have some opposition. Okay, are we finished with asking him some questions? Do you have a question for him? Okay, thank you. Okay, Billy Thompson.
My name's Billy Thompson. I live at 1319 Tubwell. Oh, yeah.
You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay, name and address.
Billy Thompson, 1319 Tubwell.
Okay, you have 3 minutes.
Okay, yeah. He got a work stop order, and we were on the front porch, and we sit on the front porch a lot. And he came over and said, "What do y'all know?" And said, "What's this about?" I said, "I really didn't know. I didn't know what a stop work order. I didn't know why it was put in. And I didn't even know. I don't know how you even get one to be here at the time. But anyway, The only thing I really want to say about this, I read the recommendations by the staff, and that just seems to fit right along with our guidelines for our historic district, so I just wanted to come and say I did agree with what the staff has recommended. But yes, he did come over and talk to us, so we're the ones he mentioned in his comments.
Okay. Did you have anything else to say?
No.
Okay. Did y'all want to ask him a question? Okay. Thank you. Justin Gillis. Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
State your name and address.
Justin Gillis, 1276 Faxon Avenue, Memphis, Tennessee, 38104.
Okay. Go ahead.
Just want to say that we agree with the recommendations of the staff, and as a resident of Speedway Terrace and a member of the community that did participate in the process for establishing the district, we appreciate your hard work and the hard work of your staff.
Okay. Anything else? Okay. All right. Thank you. And you have, sir? Did you want to come back up and say anything else? Did we have any more questions? Could you come back to the podium? Sure. Huh? I had two. Oh, there's one. Okay. John Vollmer. Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Okay, thank you. State your name and address.
My name is John Vollmer. I live at 1354 Tutwiler, about 7 houses down the street from this one. Been in the neighborhood for 23 years. I believe John and Billy, Billy that spoke earlier, been, almost 30 years. And we were involved in the planning and in implementation and getting the Speedway Terrace and all the work that went into it that we put in and establishing guidelines. And there was maybe 10 people, 15 people involved in this out of the 300 and something people in the neighborhood. So granted, all of the flyers went out, but most people, except for 10 or 15 of us, were not so much involved in the historic district, but were through many, many letters informed of the status of where we were, what we were wanting to do with the Speedway Terrace. I'm very familiar with the home. It was used for a while by one of our local burglars as a stash house when it was empty for so long. So to see it being used and renovated, it's really good. We're excited about having the house renovated in the area. However, we worked long and hard, and it was very clear. I believe we even went around to all of the properties and gave them copy of the guidelines, as well as, I think, links for the UDC, for the county and stuff like this. So there's been a lot of work on the house on and off. We've seen people do some stuff and then nothing for a long time, and a little bit more work and then nothing for a long time. Didn't know the owners or anything like that. I've looked at it. I'll be honest with you, I know we aren't really talking that much about the windows, but the windows are the cheapest of the cheapest type of vinyl windows. If you went to a warehouse place to put windows in, to buy windows, you would find these in the back that they didn't have room to put out front that are put in there. In the trim, like you took your 12-year-old kid to help you take a surplus 1x8 piece of wood and make a square around it that isn't quite right and nail it in to put around the window. So, I mean, it's not an issue for us. No, I would request.
You have 1 minute.
Okay. I would request that the city absolutely, the inspectors inspect the property to make sure they comply. And I don't think we'd even be up here and we've seen this in 2 or 3 cases now, when people buy a home in that they totally disregard the respect of the neighborhood for what we're doing and for landmarks by not pulling a permit. So what's the penalties for not pulling permits in the first place? We wouldn't be up here wasting a lot of time on doing that. So in addition, in my opinion, to having the vinyl replaced, windows replaced, and the little wrought iron, what do you call them, front porch stands replaced, that it needs to be, make sure that it fits guidelines for our inspection services.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Sure, who do you want to talk to?
Sir, I have a follow-up question for you. For the gentleman that just spoke, I have a question for you.
Could you you'll have to come back up.
Since you were involved in the creation of the Landmarks District for your neighborhood, do you mind telling the commission a little bit about what makes the homes in your area architecturally significant?
Oh, gosh, I think maybe Justin could do probably a little bit better than me. But there's a lot of history behind it. The neighborhood being built in the 1910, 1915 that were to fit the market for all of the blue-collar workers, I believe, that were also part of the Firestone things that we had. And I can't think of architectural terms.
That's okay.
Cheryl Hazelwood was most instrumental. I was one of the doers.
Gotcha.
I would need flyers done when people called. And there's about 4 or so different architectural styles that are, I guess, indigenous for this neighborhood.
Okay.
And if you look at the precedents for some of the rulings that, that we've had here, that is limited fence size and made post size certain ways, and, to make sure that they fit it. But if, I believe those architectural styles, and I didn't even bring my copy of what our overlay standards are, but probably either Don or Billy or Justin for sure could give you.
That's okay. I appreciate the information. Thank you.
It has to do with the history, how it was made at the time, what was going on at the time, the jobs that we had.
Yes, sir.
The bungalow style. Some of the
Perfect. That
Okay,
answers my
you.
question. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are you good? Sir, did you want to come back up? I didn't know if you wanted to come back up. You have 3 minutes for rebuttal.
Hey, thanks, man. You guys, thank you. I was the officer that locked up your burglar. It's funny. No, it was
I couldn't.
Bubba, my partner. No, he just takes the credit for everything. That's my partner. He just talks a lot and takes a lot of credit.
I think they're just kidding around. I couldn't hear.
There's a few different new houses that have gone up over there in that neighborhood that I don't see any historical, nothing historical about the designs.
It has to match the guidelines. It doesn't matter.
I get it. I get that. But, like I said, only reason I put it back is because that was what was really originally there.
Okay. All you have to do is just agree to what planning suggested, follow the guidelines in the neighborhood. We're good.
Okay. All right, thank you. Let's go to a motion.
Let's see, Madam Chair, I motion that we approve COA 2023-048, 1312 Tutwiler Avenue for the purposes of discussion.
Okay, is there a second? Okay, thank you. Okay. Discussion?
I am personally trying to reconcile the description that was part of the list, the contributing versus what I see as to this building. I feel that this almost isn't the original that was described. It's talking about three bay and craftsman style, and I'm like, this is like minimal traditional, isn't it? Like has been a little bit more. Either way, the picture that we were presented before and what we're matching here, the overall instance is that even on the description, it talks about exterior vinyl siding. And it's kind of interesting that this whole conversation is about it not being vinyl siding, but it's documented as having that. So if that is the whole problem, I'm just trying, like, between us, this is some.
I was going to make the same exact observation. I really feel for the applicant because bought the house and it was existing with vinyl siding. The National Historic Register document references vinyl siding, to Chairman Love's point. So it's a difficult situation, I understand. And I, like everybody that comes before this commission, you appreciate the applicant's willingness to invest in a community. But as Chairman Gill said, you still got to divide. We have to adjudicate based on the design guidelines. So it is a tough situation.
I do also think that the rest of the items, for instance, the choice of the windows, the choice of how the trim should still correspond with the aesthetic and the characteristic of the style of this home should be adhered to. Mostly one of the major things we talk about is having your mullions and muttons, making sure that those styles have some kind of 3D dimensionality about the windows, whether they're solid or divided plane lights for the windows. So there are certain things that I do think need to still be adjusted to this. But I personally, in this particular case, solely because as part of it being a contributing factor per the description of the historical one, I am okay with a proper vinyl version of a siding for this, just because that was something was originally listed, and that has been something that we have always kind of fallen back towards something with historical. And I don't know if that just could be one of those conditional elements that could allow for this different materiality with this particular historical district, because it seems like that was originally ignored or just pushed aside. But
well, the issue, one issue that I see is, yes, I can read that into there too, but had the applicant paid attention to the mailers and paid attention to being an historic district, then some of these discussions might not have even come up. They might have been guided by staff to know what to do and it not even have to come this far.
Oh, agreed. That's pretty much everybody that does anything and that comes before us, right? It's like, hey, pay attention. I mean, there is no way to excuse the fact that it was very obviously, blatantly ignored that this was a historical neighborhood. Like that, and frankly, the vehementance that's coming before us because of having to be called on this is a little concerning, but it's also understandable. There's been a lot of work up until this point being put into this home, and then to be told that this is not the way, and the reason why is because guess what? You didn't pay attention to the historical guidelines that are available if that particular effort was put forth, just as if you're looking for contractors, just as if you're looking for materials, just as if you're looking for things to put this investment in the proper place. So it's understandable. I still think that there is items that have to be fixed on this. I just don't know if the siding part necessarily needs to have to be, or is there a particular size to make sure that it still adheres to the characteristics of this particular historically contributing home to this neighborhood.
Okay, go ahead.
So the thing with the vinyl siding is that the vinyl siding, even though this is it's mentioned in the National Register, I don't think the vinyl siding was original to the house. I think it was something that was placed when vinyl siding was the trend. And We've had the prior case in Cooper Young, where right now painting brick is the trend, but it's not original to the house. And if they update the National Register and they say a painted brick house, well, that was not what was original, but you still have to go with what's in place. Underneath the vinyl siding, we see the original boards. And when we talk about modern day materials or using modern day materials in kind, we don't really recommend vinyl siding, but we will recommend cement board or hardy board. And if we're thinking about long-term and what's in the best interest for the neighborhood or future homeowners and even the current homeowner to recoup the value on their investment, cement or hardy board is much more preferable than vinyl. We're getting away from vinyl siding. Hopefully we can get away from vinyl windows. But vinyl, I think, is the last thing we see recommended in terms of siding when we're talking about historic homes or homes in local landmarks districts. And I think this is an opportunity to help the homeowner have something that's contributing to the value of the home than detracting from it. And I think if we exclude this condition and go with vinyl siding, we're not doing the homeowner a favor, and we're not doing future homeowners a favor, because we'll have an application in the future. Be right back around to this. Thank you.
Any other further discussion?
So how do we reconcile the condition?
Well, I think that's our discussion,
Yeah.
is do you leave these as is, the recommendations of staff, which is what the motion was, basically, or want to discuss adding that? That was your...
Yes, as it potentially being a similar option, same as if it's wood, fiber cement, and in this case, particularly having vinyl added, but with that same maximum 6-inch reveal, because what's up there now, I mean, would still require them to have to revise it. Hopefully they would choose to go fiber cement with the revising of it. But what's up there now is this very thin, more of like a 4-inch appearing siding, which is not appropriate to the home as it is. So it would still require additional revision of work, but in honest essence of what was documented, because this happens to us all the time, right? We know certain windows have been replaced, but when they went through and documented these windows, despite it not necessarily being a part of the original window configuration, that's what ends up being what they have to follow. So can there be a certain manner of leeway with this, since it was documented at the time where it was considered historical, with that being a part of the options? Not necessarily saying you can, but just letting that be a part of the options of selection. He still has to revise everything else.
I disagree with placing it back as an option. And the reason I disagree is, one, the guidelines state no aluminum or vinyl siding, and those are recent design guidelines. The second reason I disagree is just that even if it's new construction, it's mostly a recommendation for fiber or cement or hardy board. I mean, you hardly ever see any recommendations for vinyl siding. And I think the vinyl siding is not going to help the house become more contributing or bring it back to contributing to the neighborhood, because right now it's non-contributing. The fiber, cement, and hardy board will bring it back to a contributing state. And I think the ultimate goal is to see it in a more contributing state than one that continues to be non-contributing, even though it's been rehabbed.
Hold on, I do have a question though. Is the original board still up, or has it been completely removed? Because I think all of what I'm talking about mostly is because the vinyl in the previous case covered what was originally there, yes? Do we know if it's been completely removed? No.
I think, Mr. Harris, I think your questioning if the original
Has
siding
been,
is still on.
is
the
still
house.
on.
Yes, it appears that the original siding is still there, it's just been covered with
It's been-
vinyl. And if we do want to hear from the applicant again to clarify that,
We'll have to
we can
take-
open it back up, but I'm pretty sure that the original siding is still there, it's just covered with vinyl.
Don't ask him a question when we bring him back up.
But I can ask a staff question, right?
You got staff.
Okay, so a staff question. The idea that the current surface is still there for future rehab. Like if he was to do that, then that would be more of, because I mean, if he's going to replace the original, he's going to have to take it off to put the fiber cement on. It can't really be a covering item with that. So that's additional work that would have to be done in order for fiber cement or wood to go on, or am I mistaken?
That makes sense. But are you suggesting we leave vinyl as an option for replacement material?
Not replacement, more, it still would have to cover the original. It was more of the case of just as how they treated the previous one, so we're not removing or we're not damaging the original aspect of the home anymore, so that still is a future option for whoever comes in the future. They could take that off and still have the original there. Is that even something to consider, I guess? Because we're talking about additional work too.
It's not for me.
So I'll go with that, whatever.
An option, then it's probably the path that will be taken.
It's a question.
I don't think it was original. It's just when they documented it or did the National
Right. No,
Register
no.
nomination,
Understood.
they had to, but the vinyl is not original to the house.
Yeah, and that is a good point. Even though it's documented in the historic register documentation, it probably wasn't original.
Oh, we know it wasn't.
Well, obviously we know that.
We know it wasn't.
I personally think that number one should just stand the way it is.
Yeah, and because of that, I am inclined to. I mean, it is difficult, but I agree. I think we should leave the recommendation number one and not allow vinyl because it'll end up on the whole perimeter of the house and never be touched again. And we know that's not historic. And in something like this, I'd like to lean on the neighborhood's design guidelines as a breaking point or a decision factor.
Fine.
Any other discussion? Okay. Go ahead.
One more point, and that's dealing with the porch columns. If the porch columns, which are now wrought iron, are replaced, I think we should have a condition that it should be approved by staff because we've seen instances when it's not included, where you get this
spindly, odd looking.
Yeah, they're either too thin or they're non-treated wood, which this never had wood porch columns to begin with. So it's just, I think it should be something that staff reviews. If that is something the property owner decides to do. I think that should be included so that it can.
Does that need to be spelled out, or is that under any change or deviation?
I think that should be any change or deviation from the current plan. But if Commissioner Strong feels a little bit more particular about it, to have an ad if there's any other design changes that happens with the columns to the exterior. So.
Back to staff.
But that's number 3, isn't it?
Well,
No,
I think if I may, if I understood it, Ms. Strong, you're saying that specifically to the porch columns, that if there is any change to the porch columns, that staff would be able to review and approve that.
Yes.
Number 3 really brings things like that would come back to the commission. But if you wanted to add that as a condition that, porch columns, if they change those.
Spell that out.
Yes.
Staff? Okay. So without objection, we can add that as a condition.
Yes, please. Thank you.
Another question for staff. We've just had a lot of discussion about the siding, but the applicant's also proposing window replacement. What is the nature of that work?
Let's see. question, please.
I'm trying to find some information about what the plan is for the windows.
It says it has to match.
Yeah.
Windows are Craftsman 301, you said. But what I'm asking is in the conclusion, it says the applicant is proposing retroactive exterior alterations to replace exterior siding with vinyl and to replace windows. So I guess
we have a condition number 2 that just states that, so we don't really have information on the windows, but that's why we conditioned it to match existing in terms of size, number, location, and that type of thing. So we could add that.
Right, window details weren't included in the application.
Okay.
But you could change it to where it's just consistent. So whatever I think adding something where it's consistent. So if it's just a 1/1 that we see, it's just consistent all around, not mismatched.
Size, number, location, but not style, original style. Right.
Correct.
But should we add style?
Well, it's not a part of the.
But can the condition read, replacement window shall match the existing in terms of number, location, size, and style?
I think if you go with consistent, so whether if it's 1/1 or 4/1, as long as it's consistent all around, they'll just have to match. Obviously, the larger openings will be, what they are, but we do see where they just put up mismatch, one side and front and side, all different.
Okay, do we need to change or add something there?
Just another question for staff. What does the neighborhood design guidelines say about windows? Do they address them at all?
They don't speak to windows on section 7.5. It says any alteration or improvement to any property within this district that is not explicitly subject to review in these guidelines is not required to apply for a COA, and this includes, but are not limited to screened-in porches, window or door replacement, security windows and bars, and non-permanent decorative yard items.
Thank you. Then I don't think we need to add anything.
I do have a question about that. Could we go back to the front? Are we aware of it seems like there was a change done to that front gable over the porch. If you scooch down to the past image of this building, the gable appears to have like a full window.
Oh, I'm sorry. Is that a better? I'm sorry for the angle.
Over the porch and, yeah, versus there just being a little pimple. Yeah, right there over the front. Do you see that?
What are you saying?
Mara says is the vent.
Yeah, that.
There's something there, yeah.
Like 2 windows, and then
You look at the current
where it's boarded up, you see 1.
Look at the current gable.
Vent here, is that what you're doing?
I think it's gone through a couple of changes.
Well, when you look down at this old picture, it's 2, right?
Smaller vent.
It's a smaller one, and I think it must have gotten changed various times then, because the first one I'm looking at on the first image is a full window, or almost like a single hung window kind of look to it. And then the other image has what looks like a vent. And then this one has it as it being just a little square vent to it. So are we aware of what it was once it was, like, how will we determine that with the original, or do we just leave this alone, period?
Well, you just said the design guidelines don't address windows and doors.
Openings, I don't even know if that was a window, right? But yeah.
It addresses the openings. It addresses openings, but it doesn't specifically address.
Not the style. Okay.
You're right.
Oh. Okay, fair point.
It is a opening.
The applicant says it's an attic vent and it was longer before.
Right.
Okay.
Do you want to ask him a question? The applicant? Clarify anything?
Well, it sounds like you just verified what it was, a longer vent. So is that something that we want, or are we cool with, I'm not going where, okay, there we go. We're good. Just got everything covered.
We need to
Yep.
add the
porch,
about
columns, and be done. Okay.
Yeah, I've got that.
Okay, you've got it?
Yes.
Okay, so let's,
Let's vote. Yeah.
Okay. Ms. Boyd? Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Ms. Strong?
Yes.
Ms. Love?
Yes.
Mr. Gill?
Yes.
Mr. Winter?
Yes.
Chair Tucker?
yes,
Motion carries.
thank you.
Our next item is item number 5, COA 2023-053-924 North McLean Boulevard.
Okay, is the applicant present? Okay, right. Thank you. Would you raise your right hand, please? Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God?
I'm not religious.
Okay.
I swear by my own integrity.
Okay, will you state your name and address?
Torian Whitlow, 924 North McLean Boulevard.
Okay, have you seen the staff report?
Yes,
Okay, are you in agreement with the staff report?
I am.
Okay.
My remarks are about regarding the process. I do have some questions and some concerns, as well as a lot of the people that I'm here with today.
Okay, let me get the staff report and then we'll come back to
No
that.
problem.
Madam Chair, I think we are all in agreement. The applicant is also agreeing to the staff recommendations. So I think to save time, it would be better to address applicants' questions and concerns about the process.
Okay.
Okay, so my primary concern is how this whole thing came about. I am a lifelong resident in this home. I am 42 years old, which means that I've lived in that house for 42 years. I know the neighborhood, I know the neighbors, I know who's come and gone. And the initial complaint that I received was that I was enclosing my porch. It seems that this situation is more about punitive, I guess, response to how you all do things, because at no point was it ever discussed with me any kind of questions about, hey, what are you doing here? What is this? So from the get-go, the situation has been very stressful and very concerning for me because I didn't understand what exactly I had done wrong. And with that being said, the porch already being enclosed, it doesn't make sense to cite someone for enclosing a porch that's already enclosed. It literally has, if you could go through other pictures that I submitted to you, you could see the picture that I sent to you all was from the 80s. You're not gonna get pictures of a historical house on Google search. Google came out in like 2000. So I don't understand where there was any kind of research done that says that you based your initial complaint on about the property. But beyond that, what we've decided, where you see the porch enclosure there are 1, 2, 3 wood slats, 1, 2, 3 wood slats. And the new design has 1 in the center and 1 in the center on each side. So we've agreed, yes, I will add the additional wood slats. But I don't think that this is something with you all's process that really needed me to be under the threat of law to have a warrant sent out for my arrest and fines for 4 pieces of wood. I think that's absurd. Also, your payment fee structures with regards to, they just seem to be very arbitrary. So you ask someone to submit an application for a COA, and they just kind of look at you, and then they just kind of say, well, I feel like this is a major change. Not one person that I've given this situation to can see that this is any major change to the property whatsoever. I'm not doing anything to the structure of the house, and really the overall look either is just a different color now, it's brown, So that might appear to be different, but it's really not that much different. But yet, your fee structure that I was charged was the most because it said I did a major change. And then because I received a ticket for something that really was illogical, enclosing a porch that was already enclosed, I received a double price for that. And that just, I don't understand the consistency of the fee rates, how that makes any sense, what governs or regulates that, how you can know ahead of time that you're gonna be charged double or charged $600 or $300. Like, none of this stuff makes any sense to me, especially being somebody that's lived in this house my entire life. I understand landmarks, but you're basically saying that the district that I grew up in, the house I grew up in now is dictated and controlled by someone else. So I would just like for the committee or the commission to see this from my perspective as somebody that's lived in this house my whole life, where I feel like I'm just being punished and a criminal in my own house. So if y'all would like to
Madam Chair, I think I can address this, Mr. Whitlow. This is, the commission is really here to talk about design issues and things about that we might work out as far as the design. The things you're talking about, I'm happy to talk with you offline about that, but that is the process that is in place, and the fee structure is the fee structure that was approved by City Council. And so it's just a process. You live in a historic district, and those are the requirements. So I'm happy to talk with you about those offline.
Okay.
So I would like to thank the applicant for being here today. Thank you, Mr. Whitlow. And thank you for agreeing to the recommendations in the staff report. And I'm glad that what was recommended is in alignment with what you're willing to do or will do for the front facade. I think, I appreciate you sharing your concerns with us. And looking at this picture, and if you could go to the next one without the that one there. So I think in terms of cases that we've seen up here today, I think it is more of a minor one with things that really we have concerns or issues about. But I would like to, you're speaking about, or your application is about enclosing the front porch on your house. And thankfully you did it with glass, which is transparent and you can see through. However, it was an exterior alteration, and yes, you've had an enclosed, transparent porch all these years with glass. But what changed is that you now see the glass versus the wood slots or slits. Okay, that's a change to the exterior of the front facade. And again, in the scheme of things, what we discussed here is minor. However, we did have a case last month in April in the same neighborhood, which was 863 Garland Street. And it's COA 2023-029. Please look it up, 863 Garland Street. And what the applicant or property owner did on that one is they totally enclosed the front porch, took out a window. So you totally had, it was boxed in, and you had cement or fiber siding. Everything boxed in on the front porch. You couldn't see through. That's not what you normally find on those type of houses. It was a Craftsman, I think Craftsman bungalow. It was similar to your house. Now, looking at your application or your case compared to that, it's a blessing. However, that was an eyesore, and it was not something that could be ignored. And, I empathize with you. The process is not perfect, and I'm sorry, that you've gone through, but I hope that you can see in a way that this is quite, they're only asking that you put the wood slots back, which sort of match with what's been traditionally seen of your house. So I hope you can look at it with your case and then look at the one from last month, and please look at it online, look it up and see for yourself. That's why you're sort of caught in it, because you did a minor detail, not to the extreme that they did, but you have to address all exterior work that's visible from the public right-of-way. And yours just happened to fall into that, even though it was minor. Thank you.
I appreciate your sensitivity to your home. Similar as Commissioner Strong, I really do appreciate the fact that it's still glazing. I mean, I think before it was a screen, essentially.
It had glass and screen before.
Glass and screen. So
Do you have the picture from the 80s?
I have a couple of pictures. Something you sent from January 2019, which may have been the earlier version. Yes.
But that one?
So, honestly, I think you did extremely good work, and I appreciate that you're keeping up your home and staying in this neighborhood.
In the Zoom meeting, I do plan on changing the color to a more neutral palette color. I don't like the yellow, and I do want it to be a better, more neutral tone. But
is that the original brick? Is it the buff brick, or was it already painted? Was it it's already painted?
The original was brick when I lived it. It got painted about 11 or 12 years ago.
Yeah. So we would appreciate even that effort, bringing it back to it. So, but now definitely check out the guidelines if we have to send it to you and talk to them. And then literally this effort that you're going through right now, this irritation, you won't have it.
And that's truly all you have to do is if you know you're in a historic district and you grew up, I mean, it's been a historic district for a while. 2021. When?
It's been
July 2021.
Okay. So.
You said July of 2021?
Mm-hmm. So you were there then, though?
Yeah,
you lived there.
No time. That's during COVID.
It was a trial, let me tell you. We actually even gave additional more time to make sure that the residents had time to respond back to certain things.
I never got any mail out until after this process started taking place. And when I went upstairs to talk to people, people are really disrespectful in that they just kind of talk to you like they're trying to punish you, like you should have known better kind of thing. It's like there's no cause for any of that. There's no cause for that at all. Like it's still a matter of private property, however you want to look at it. And somebody else dictating to you your private property doesn't cause for any kind of contempt like that. So I just would recommend that y'all kind of work on the overall system with how people deal with people with this.
Customer service. Yeah.
If you want to call it that.
Well, thank you. Appreciate it.
All right.
Okay, so he was Mr. Whitlow was one of the speakers as well. I have Alex Lynch.
Good afternoon.
Could you raise you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do swear.
Okay, thank you. Could you state your name and address?
Yes, my name is Alex Lynch. I live at 934 North McLean, which is just 2 houses to the left.
Okay, and you have 3 minutes.
3 minutes, thank you.
Pass on.
I am here to speak in support of Mr. Whitlow's change. I actually don't think that those wood slats should go back. Now that I've looked at the photos, now that I've looked at the regulations, I had time to look over them during the other sessions. The original character of the house had this open look to it. Those wood slats were added when the screen was put in, whenever that happened. So I think the current condition is actually closer to the original condition than the screen was. I mean, arguably what he's done is take something that probably wouldn't be approved by this board today and make it into something that everybody seems to agree is better in general, the glass open space making it look like it did when it was originally constructed. I'm kind of the opinion that this maybe doesn't even require a permit and maybe the whole action should just be dismissed. I didn't realize that they were asking him to put back those slats that didn't really serve any purpose. I'm fine with the way it looks. I think it looks great. And when I heard what he had to go through, I told him that I would love to come and speak in support. And now that I kind of understand more what the recommendation is, I think it should just stay like it is right now, today, without the slats. And I don't know if that's what happens at these meetings, if they just dismiss the action, but I guess that's what I think should happen today. So thank you for letting me speak.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we kind of got off track. So did anyone have any questions of staff? I have one question. Does anybody know when that picture was taken?
That was taken in the 80s.
In the 80s?
Yes.
Okay. And come back, I do have,
My whole life, I was born in 1981.
okay, so you've lived there since,
I've lived there since 1981.
okay, and when do you think it was, didn't have those slats in it? Because your witness said that the slats didn't exist for a while, that they were just, there was one in the, just
Like
one in
now,
the
he's
middle?
talking about now. He's referring to how it looks now. There's a slat in the center on
Right.
each side.
But I was thinking did you just not say that you wanted to go back, not put the slats back in because the slats hadn't been
I
there?
think what he was referring to was the basic shape where you see the brick outlining those areas where the screen is, as in that being an open space. And that opening being disrupted by the wooden slats.
Okay.
But
My point was that when they built the house in 1937 or whatever, it wasn't screened in. It just had an open porch with a single column, brick column in between. So it's 3 brick columns with an open space. And at some point, they put the screen in before the neighborhood was a historic district. And now the change that he's done, in my opinion, restores it back to the way it looked when they built it in the late 30s. It's completely open. There is a slightly visible metal slat between the 2 panels on each side, but I think it looks great, in my opinion.
Okay, thank you.
So, just wondering, if it was restored back to how it was originally built, there would be no porch enclosure. It would all be open. So it's not restored back because the porch is enclosed, although it's transparent because it's glass. And, glass is appropriate or a screen. But now that it's enclosed, going back because of when you're looking at the front facade now, all you see is the glass. You don't see sort of an open porch. But the slats, which is more back in the 80s, which is on this picture, sort of disguises the prominence of the glass that you see without it, which is why staff is recommending putting the slats back, because you find screened porches and you will find enclosed porches with glass, but you don't find that distinctive, it's like a black line. Some of the enclosed porches that have glass, it matches the shape of the porch and it's seamless. There's not a break or a line. And so that's why that's what's being recommended, to disguise the glass so that it still looks like a porch, even though it's enclosed.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree. Good comments.
Okay, we have another speaker. Charles, is it Baldwin?
Balding.
Okay, you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay, state your name and address, please.
Charles Balding. I'm at 8176 Dogwood Road, Germantown.
Okay.
I've known Mr. Whitlow and his family for over 20 years, been coming to this home. And I actually had, and it's a little bit of an echo chamber, so I apologize for this, but my thoughts were similar to the other gentleman who spoke. The look of the house actually goes back to more original. Sure, the picture you have shows a reflection of glass. That is the time of day. But when you go by there at night, you don't see that at all. Certain times of the day, you don't see that at all. As much as I respect the chair and the board's recommendations on adding stuff back, essentially you're saying take it back to the 1980s as opposed to the 1930s. I mean, that's just kind of essentially what it is. It's already enclosed. So what I would hope is that the board would take into recommendation, of course I want nobody, but what I would hope is you would hear me out on the idea that, and it is echo chamber, that this gentleman is actually giving back to its original features. The glass is transparent. The old screens, you can't see through that at all. You really couldn't. But that's part of the reason why I opened it up. But secondary is, it's my understanding, and I could be wrong on this, but from what I've read, the initial complaint on him was for enclosing the porch. It was already enclosed, and he endured fines for that. I don't know, but does the board have the empowerment, especially if he's willing to go ahead and take it back to an 80s look, to at least rescind the fines that he was hit with? Because what he did is not cheap. It was actually an upgrade that looks more original. And that's all. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you. Okay. You have any other? Okay, at this time, I'm going to close the discussion. I need a motion.
Madam Chair, for the purposes of discussion, I move that we approve COA 2023-053, 924 North McLean Boulevard.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Discussion? Do we want to stay with what we have, or want to consider his suggestions? I'm fine. I agree with condition 1 because it's a solution for the porch being enclosed. The preference is to not have the porch enclosed, but it's enclosed, and it's been enclosed for decades now. And, it's a solution where the glass is sort of black, or it has the black appearance. It's not as transparent, where it has a divider type thing. And if you didn't see that, that would be different.
I could go either way, honestly. Like, seriously, that's the color almost goes into the background anyway, the choice of it. It's more open. I personally didn't like all of the slats in the first place, but I understood it because that's kind of the span of the screens as it would be for supporting and having that kind of coverage. So I think the reason why they were there in the first place was for support of the particular material that was there. And I do think it does bring it back to a point where now this looks like more of an open porch, but it hasn't been open in 40-something years. So I am okay with either option, truthfully. Like, it could stay as it is now, and I'm okay with that.
It doesn't bother me.
Yeah, I would agree. I think it's a good discussion.
Yeah, I was going to say I'm okay with the current conditions, honestly. Me personally.
They're saying that they're okay with what is existing right now as opposed to putting the more slats back. Is that not what y'all are suggesting?
Because I agree with the previous comments. I think both cases are true. Probably when the house was originally built, it was probably completely open as a porch. But when it was enclosed as a screened porch, you're right, they were probably, additional mullions were included because of support of the screens. So you really could see it either way and both be historically accurate.
Right. I mean, it does, from the photographs, changes a little bit of the character of the house as far as those colored mullions.
True.
But then again, losing them makes it, I mean, if you put them back, it's just what's there, what has been there, but I'm not sure that it helps the look of what's got, you're just adding some verticals.
Right, exactly. And I think someone made the comment about the glass being, we wish maybe it was non-glare glass or something like that. That does distract your view. But I kind
'Cause
of
it's
agree.
dark.
Yeah, because it's dark. But someone made the point too about, drive by at night, it probably looks more like an open porch, which I think is a good comment. So yeah, it's kind of tough. I think you're right about if you add the dimensional mullions back, it might distract even more. I can go either way.
I guess my question is looking at page 5, the image from page 5, which is the recent image from April. And if you look, it's obviously a large window. And I think just the dividing line with the black, where it looks like it's a divider or it's supporting, stands out. The seam down the middle.
It does, but I think it is potentially time of day. The good thing about it being dark mullions is that when there is direct sunlight, they'll be in shadow and kind of potentially blend more with everything else around it.
Or if you didn't have as many, if you didn't have as many, and you just had the one piece of wood or divider over that, I would be satisfied. I could agree to that. Where if you didn't have as many wood dividers or slots, but I just think that dividing line, because it's not one piece of glass, it looks like it's more than one, and that stands out. And you see in the neighborhood examples where it's a single piece of glass, where there's not this dividing line in it when they enclose the porch.
Is it one piece of glass or is it two?
It's likely that it's two pieces. I mean, I think you would need the support. You can only get glass so big. Not to mention, yeah. I agree with your comment. I wish it'd be great if it was one piece of glass, but I think that might be technically infeasible. I'm not sure exactly how big the opening is, but my guess is it probably is bigger than.
But having a dividing, it would just disguise that, because everything else looks transparent except for the dividing line.
So what is your suggestion?
Having the wood slat over that dividing line, that center line on the piece of glass.
Well, I'm thinking it has a mullion there.
Or mullion, whatever it is.
Just the one vertical though?
Suggesting, as we have it conditioned, that's what you're suggesting, correct?
Yes, I'm asking, or I'm discussing it with the commissioners, their thoughts on it. Because to me, it just stands out, the center line on the piece of glass. It's a dividing line.
I'm not getting that.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure I follow.
I'm looking. But
In the middle, could you move the arrow over right there?
Yeah.
That's a dividing line, and I'm just asking, like, if you had one piece of the wood slat or whatever over that dividing line, because that stands out. That's where you realize it's not a single pane of glass. It's two glasses together. And so to compromise, instead of having all the slots put back, where you have that dividing line where you're combining the two pieces of glass, have the wood slot over there, because I think it disguises it better. Whereas to me, that stands out.
Yeah, so you're suggesting to add trim over it?
Mullion trim just to disguise that divider where the two pieces of glass meet.
Something that's a little thicker.
I think that's going to end up looking worse, because if I can see anything about this particular window, it's almost more of a storefront kind of condition perhaps, where the framing is done in a manner where they are very integral with each other as a total frame. So trying to do that would actually highlight it in a way that I don't think will look good for this particular condition, just because it's not that kind of a window.
So then, I just think, considering that, for me, my opinion is, the original going back, the older picture going back to the 80s, or on page 4, to me, when I look at that, I see more of the sort of architectural details on the house, whereas looking at this one that's on the screen now, they sort of go in the background. They don't pop out as much to me, which is sort of why my preference is for the image on page 4 and the picture from the 80s, because I feel like it really pops out the trim and everything else that's happening with the house. Whereas that single pane window, those architectural features go into the background,
Yeah.
in my opinion.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that comment. I will say that if going this direction and leaving the mullions as is helps support the argument of this is one big open space. So if we go with the idea that this is going to look like the original porch as if it was originally completely open, having the smaller mullion in the middle with the glass helps support that idea of one big opening instead of smaller pieces. So having the mullion be really thin makes it go away with the glass as opposed to accentuating it. So I think, in my opinion, it's either leave it as it is or go back to the 4 divided lights with the thicker mullions. But I think the way it is fine.
Wait, he has it.
Right.
What's your thing? We can't hear you. You're gonna.
I'm afraid changing it's going to make it worse.
Yeah. Okay, so.
I guess that'll be a condition where we'll change the first condition, or how would you?
Would you just strike the first condition? Is that what I'm hearing, I think, would be, and so this was Ms. Strong's motion.
He's going to have to withdraw it or.
Right, you would have to make that, we could amend the motion and then vote on whether or not, but you made the motion, and it's, I believe it may be objected to from Ms. Strong, I'm not sure, but.
I think, because I mean, basically any other change that he chooses to do to the front of this building,
But
right?
it's her motion, so.
Right.
We either vote on that motion.
Yeah, you could, someone, yes.
We can vote on, can we vote on this one and then you vote on this, or you want me just, well.
Yes.
Or you change your motion. It's up to, but I know how you feel on.
So, let me see. If the motion was changed, what would you all like it to say?
We're just.
Striking number 1?
With the major understanding that by the applicant that anything else, painting it, because that was anything else has got to go under 2.
It has been painted previously, so painting would not be, but.
Painting it another color.
Right, that would not come before the commission because it's been painted previously, so.
Okay.
Yeah, but yeah, we can make sure, and I think that Mr. Whitlow understands, so we can, and we always prefer that even if it seems like it's a no effect, we prefer that, just send us an email, and so we'll be in touch with Mr. Whitlow and make sure, we have the conversation, and, a lot of the things that he's talking about doing would be no effect, and if it is something that would require a COA, then we could work with him to do that, so.
So that's whatever you want to do with your motion.
So this, and Ms. Strong doesn't have to necessarily do this as a friendly amendment if she doesn't want to, but you could vote on this amendment.
On it.
But
We can vote on it.
you want to vote on the amendment? Okay.
Vote on it as it stands, or do you want
So
to?
the amendment would be proposed to strike condition number 1. Okay. And we need a second?
Second.
Okay. So we'll call the vote on that, Madam Chair?
Do you mind clarifying what we're voting on, just to be
We are
extra
voting
sure?
on the amendment to the motion that would be to strike condition 1.
Thank you.
Yes, and then we can vote on the case itself, unless there are other discussions, so. All right, Mr. Gill?
Yes.
Ms. Love?
Yes.
Ms. Strong?
No.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Winter?
Yes.
Ms. Boyd? Chair Tucker?
Yes.
The motion passes to strike condition number 1. So if there's any other discussion, or we can vote on the case with just the single condition that will be now number 1, that is number 2. Okay? Ms. Boyd?
Another vote.
Mr. Gill? Mr. Winter?
Yes.
Ms. Strong?
No.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Ms. Love?
Yes.
Chair Tucker?
Yes.
Motion carries. Our next item is item number 6, COA 2023-055, 1882 Central Avenue.
Is the applicant present? For all those. Okay. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, ma'am.
State your name and address, please.
Zachary Corr, C-O-R-R, 1882 Central Avenue.
Okay. Have you seen the staff report?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you agree with staff report and conditions?
Yes, ma'am, and I do, and I would comply with the staff recommendations, conditions at the bottom.
Okay, thank you.
Can you just clarify that? Rejection? Are you agreeing with the rejection?
Oh. I didn't even look at that.
I mean, if the staff, I don't necessarily agree that I want it to be rejected, but if the staff or if the council is open to the conditions that they've laid out, then absolutely, I will comply with that.
Okay, can we see the staff report?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Aisha Penzes, Division of Planning and Development. Item before you is a request for site improvements to install a new cobblestone front yard parking pad at 1882 Central Avenue in Central Gardens Historic District. Subject property is a new construction, 2-story Georgian Revival influenced single-family home, which was built very recently, and it has a 2 attached car garage in accordance with MLC 19220 approval from 2019. The applicant is requesting to pave about 300 square feet parking pad at the front of the structure. Here are the photos taken by the code enforcement officials showing that the current situation where vehicles being parked in front of the structure, and you can see the parking pad, the proposed parking pad is already outlined by a thin strip of concrete. So the proposed parking pad is more than 50 feet away from the public right-of-way from Central Avenue, which makes this allowed by the Unified Development Code. However, the Central Gardens design guidelines strictly prohibit front yard parking pads. Here's the proposed pavement material, which is cobblestones. And as I mentioned before, Central Gardens design guidelines strictly prohibit front yard parking pads, and it actually states, even if screening is proposed, a parking pad or other defined paved area for parking shall not be placed in the front yard. Based on the design guidelines, we recommend rejection of this request. However, if approved by the commission, we recommend the following conditions for you to consider. First, parking pad shall be of cobblestones like the example picture provided by the applicant, and its area shall be reduced to allow only one vehicle space, which shall be maximum 19.5 feet by 9 feet. Parking pad shall be screened with landscaping, which include evergreen shrubs and small trees on the south and west side of the parking pad, and any change or deviation from the approved COA shall be submitted to the commission for review and approval. This concludes my staff presentation. I would be happy to answer any questions.
questions for staff? One. Okay. Okay, you have 5 minutes to present.
Yes, ma'am. Well, when we built the house last year with 4 kids, it just became kind of a safety issue, just where the nanny or the babysitters could kind of turn around right there. It's not intended for an overnight space. We do not want it to look ugly. I'm obviously being right on Central and taking great pride in Central Gardens and our house. We certainly want to comply with the recommendation that the staff has laid out. We're totally fine with that.
Okay.
What specifically do you disagree with staff's suggestions?
I don't.
You don't?
Their suggestions are totally fine.
Okay.
We can comply with that.
All right. If
Staff had-
approved.
Staff had rejected it.
Right, staff rejected it. But if approved, you would be happy to do
Yes,
this?
sir.
Okay.
Okay, so you built it in 2022,
Yes, ma'am.
and at that point, you didn't realize that you needed extra space? I mean, you've got a 2-car garage. Do you have space in the back? What's
There is,
the
but-
point of it?
Right, there's a gate right there. And so when we were first coming to see the house, either construction trucks were there or the driveway was kind of the last thing that was built out. So we really didn't have too much of an opportunity to get in and out of that area. But really it is for either guests or the nanny or babysitters that are not going into the back. They're kind of right there at the front, dropping the kids off, kind of turning right around. And it is not intended to be a overnight space.
But it is clearly not within their guidelines, correct?
Correct.
Having that, okay. Anyone you want to ask?
I'll ask one more question. Did you have any consideration about a circle drive or anything else? Any other options you considered in terms of addressing vehicular traffic on the site?
We did, but again, Circle Drive would probably have drawn even more attention. So we were trying to do something very natural to the landscape, not even really, so now that the neighbors have brought that up is why we have,
Is a circle drive against the guidelines?
in Central Gardens, the Circle Drive is, I believe.
I believe so.
What'd you say?
I would need to check the design guidelines again.
Okay.
But I believe they are also not very fond of circular driveways, since it would lead to parking in the front yard.
To me, a circle drive is
So
even.
it's pretty clear.
Well, Madam Chair, he would have to get approval for another
No front
curb
yard
cut
parking.
from engineering, so you have to have approval from engineering for another curb cut in addition to getting a.
That's what I was
COA, so-
wondering, yeah.
But that's not even that's not what she's asking for. He's
No,
not-
it was a,
It's pretty clear that that it's no front yard parking.
Correct. I also can appreciate and see your utility. I have parking in the front of my house. There's probably 2 spaces, but we don't use it for a vehicle. But we have a gate, and people use it. If you have a visitor, so, and nanny uses it when you don't want to take them to the back. I get the utility of it.
But the guidelines are there too.
Yeah.
Okay, do you have any more questions?
Madam Chair?
We're going to have a speaker. Josh Whitehead. Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do. Josh Whitehead, 1955 Central. I am not here in a representative capacity for Dr. Kaur. I live about a 1/10 of a mile to the east of where the square footage precipitously drops off of the houses, by the way. I was on the fence of whether I should come this morning, but for the first time in 3 years, I ran into Dr. Kaur on my morning dog walk, so I felt like, well, maybe that's a sign. Instead of you having no opposition, you have no opposition plus perhaps a speaker in support. That was serendipity number one. Serendipity number two was I had a client who asked me to look at the Tennessee Code annotated on historic zoning commissions. So I found, just coincidentally, a section of the TCA that I think might help. As you know, there's a lot of homes along our busier streets in Central Gardens, particularly along Central and McLean and Peabody, that have front yard parking pads, turnaround drives that predate the design guidelines that prohibit them. In fact, you could argue the prohibition in the design guidelines were a direct reflection of the proliferation of front yard parking pads and circular drives. So we have a situation where the design guidelines are clearly spell out a prohibition, but yet on the other end of the spectrum, you have this prohibition predominant throughout the neighborhood, including to Dr. Corr's immediate east. There's a 2-car parking pad. So TCA 137408 guides historic zoning commissions on their certificate of appropriateness approvals. We don't call you a historic zoning commission because we like to confuse people, but that's what you are. And it states that the Historic Zoning Commission shall apply the applicable design guidelines and give prime consideration to the following. Prime consideration, historic and architectural value of the present structure, but number 2 and number 3 are key, I think. The relationship of the exterior architectural features of such structure, the structure here being the parking pad, to the rest of the structures, to the surrounding area, and to the character of the district. Number 3, the general compatibility of exterior design, arrangement, texture, and materials proposed to be used. I think that is key because at least, like I said, adjacent to Dr. Corr, there's a parking pad. And if you go further out along Central and up McLean, again, they are predominant on lots of this size. So I believe that there could potentially be some room here where something is clearly out of compliance with the design guidelines, but that the General Assembly has provided an out. And that's not just for this case, that's for all cases. And let's be honest, if many of the cases that are before you are clearly outside the design guidelines. So I think it was purposeful that the law was written this way to kind of give you an out. I think that concludes my statements, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. Do y'all have any questions for Mr. Lawhead? Okay. You want to get the speaker back up and ask him anything, or? No. Okay. Did you want to make another statement?
No, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. So we need a motion.
Motion to approve COA 2020. For discussion purposes.
Do I have a second?
I can't ever leave it on.
Okay.
I get it. I understand the need of having a parking pad up front because I use mine all the time. So it's really hard for me not to want to go against the.
It's hard, but also,
the distance from the right of way.
It's allowing for precedent, and that's, I think, what he was saying. It allows for more precedence. This is what, because it is clearly stated in their rules that we shouldn't have those. And I'm assuming that the pads that are there were there possibly before their guidelines were written.
Right. A lot of this is the distance from the right-of-way for me. You know, when it's right up on the right-of-way and you add parking in front, it's very noticeable. But when you have 53 feet from the right-of-way and then you're going to add landscaping in front of the parking area and it's only used for visitors, it's something that I could personally support.
So this is a case where if you're 20 feet off, then you can't do it, or if you're...
I think the distance of the right-of-way matters. I mean, my house is at least 53 feet from the right-of-way, and you can't see our parking pad. So and it doesn't have landscaping around it.
Except when there's a car on it. I think that's
Certainly,
the whole idea.
But
is-
that's the utility that you're adding
Right.
to a structure of this, that is as valuable as a structure. So that's for me, from a site planning point of view, it makes sense to have a parking pad and then a gate system that goes to the back. So I personally can support it for that reason. Mostly around the distance from the right-of-way and the fact that when you improve it, it has to have landscaping around it.
And if this is going to come up, it might be that Central Gardens needs to also readdress put addendums in for some of these things that.
Certainly.
Go ahead.
Well, Central Gardens revised their design guidelines in 2019.
2019.
2019, as recently as 2019. So that wasn't too long ago. And we now know that they, I think as Mr. Whitehead put forward, probably, because it says, that S17 parking should be located to the rear. Less preferably, parking may be permitted to the side of the house, but must be screened with landscaping if the area is visible from a public right-of-way. Front yard parking is not appropriate and shall not be allowed. So this is a shall not a should not. And with design guidelines, that distinction we shouldn't miss. It's a shall not. The second thing is that I think there is a double garage or something in the back, and you have the driveway. So there is plenty of parking. And even though you say, oh, it's going to be a parking pad that's not going to be used all the time, and it's just going to be a temporary use when there's company or someone is dropping off or the nanny, et cetera. Well, even though a vehicle or vehicles may not be on that parking pad all the time, that parking pad will be there all the time. And this is just something for current homeowners. There is no guarantee that they will still be the homeowners 25, 50 years from now. And we know predominantly in terms of streetscape for that street, they didn't have front yard parking pads weren't the norm. And they've sort of, one could assume that, because this is in here, and the neighborhood Central Gardens boxed it in red. We normally just get a letter, but it's boxed in red. So it's important, and I think it's something they're trying not to have become a precedent, particularly on, well, this address is at Harvard, but I'm sorry, no, it's not. Sorry, I meant Central. Not have it become a precedent on Central, which is a major, when I say gateway, frequently traveled, visible street in the neighborhood. And those are my thoughts on that. Thank you.
Okay. Do y'all have?
Yeah, well, this is a tough one because I understand the utility as well, but I think the guidelines are clear and I understand Mr. Whitehead's points. But it's also interesting to look at the block around, and nobody has a circle drive except for the guy behind you that has but it's off the street. So
He's asking for a pad, though.
sorry, circle drive or pad. Nobody else has that on the block, so it's hard to argue the loophole that Mr. Whitehead brought up.
Well, actually, the one right next door has a pad.
Oh, he did say that. Yeah, it's hard to see in this.
Well, and it's also hard to dismiss that those were redone in 2019. As she said, it's pretty, the shall is, and that the house was built in 2022, and that's just a year ago.
Right, and
You know
that's
the history on the house next door? Why do they have one?
Here. Is it the older house?
I will say that I did a little trip around the neighborhood a bit, and then to the point of there being a precedent, honestly, most of the precedents had already occurred. And this new house almost is nestled right in the middle of a variety of different types of drives that have happened there. You have some that are double wide drives. You have some that have the corner circle. You have one down the street that's a full half drive, that's half circle drive. You have the double pads, the single pads. I mean, and I think most of it, particularly those with the pads, do have that length of front yard space where it almost does tend to blend into the neighborhood when nobody's using it. But even when somebody is, it's not off from view. So for this particular condition, to me, I feel that our role is to help a guideline, which is not a rule. It is a guideline for us to overall be able to look at each individual home in its own context. And for me, the context is that even the staff has provided some options should it not be rejected, shows that there is a measure of flexibility that can happen with this particular condition. And one of those is that now they're, instead of limiting it limits it to one car space instead of two.
Right.
So it's making it even a smaller impact, which now this means that that spacing has become closer to 60 feet instead of even it being the 50, closer to 50 feet. So I am okay with staff's conditions should this get approved. Or should it not be rejected, I guess is the terminology for it.
But again, this is a newly built structure or property from 2022, which is, I'm assuming, less than a year. And, you know, frankly, it's sort of like new construction, or the design guidelines would really apply to this. Can't really say for the parking pads that exist, whether they were grandfathered in, have no way of knowing, you know, when it happened. But this is present day, and we know for certain what the design guidelines say. This is a shall not. We have the letter from the Neighborhood Central Gardens Association boxed in red saying, you know, pointing out that this is a shall not. And obviously, you know, if you continue approving this, then it becomes the norm. It's not setting up, it's just the norm.
Yeah, so I guess I wanted to go back to my comments and ask the applicant, do you know about the history of the pad next door? Was it there when you moved in?
We have to.
And actually, we've closed the public portion of the hearing, but if you wanted to open it back up, we can do that. Or I don't know if we have any information on it's been there for several years, I know, just personally.
Okay.
Well, when this project came in back in 2019, the parking pad, the front yard parking pad of the next door neighbor was already there. So it has been there before the design guidelines were actually updated and before the new construction was done.
I'm going by rejection. That's just me. I'm leaning towards supporting the staff on this because I think that in this, I mean, it is a precedent. They were written in 2019. They were emphatic on what they said. And this house was built in 2022. That's just how my thoughts on it, not.
I get the utility, but I think the neighborhood has been very clear on their position, and there are other precedents in the neighborhood, whether they're, you know, contemporary or not is a different question. I tend to rely on the neighborhood's guidance, and if y'all didn't notice, the neighborhood did write a letter of opposition that's in the packet as well.
The applicant actually talked with Ms. Shelley Rainwater, the representative for Central Gardens Association, and Ms. Rainwater confirmed that they would be amenable to these recommended staff conditions for your consideration. And
Yeah, I see
I
that
believe,
now.
Mr. Ragsdale, you can reach out to her to confirm if
So she's
we
going
need
against her own
confirmation.
guidelines. She's going to go against the guidelines and say that, is that what Ms. Rainwater's saying in here?
that, yeah, that's what I understand.
But is that a
But
follow-up?
since she's not here, I don't want to.
Right, her letter clearly says not in the front yard. So do we have an update from her?
This one.
So I might clarify just one point, that when we get letters of opposition or support, that is before most of the time that they see any conditions that we might be adding to it. So I don't know if Ms. Rainwater, I don't have confirmation. I'm
That's
not
the-
doubting Mr. Corr's
Those are the guidelines.
conversation.
No, she said even if it is proposed.
So that letter came just on the application
Oh, no, you're right, I'm
itself,
sorry.
likely? Well, yes, it did, because it's in the staff report, and the staff report wasn't published, and let me verify, we did not share the conditions with
No,
Central Gardens.
I did not share
Okay,
the
that's it.
conditions before the
Okay,
staff report was published. It's a.
So Shelley is in support. What was in there is that she's showing us what the guidelines are, and that's why it's in red.
Correct.
That was written May 9th. We got the packet.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the letter of opposition came not based on any conditions, if that helps. So it was just on the application itself as it stood.
Oh, I see.
Yes.
Okay, so she's followed up and said she agrees with the staff conditions, or at least that's what we're hearing. Okay. And then what was the discussion about the timing of the updated Central Gardens design guidelines? When did those go into place?
Well, they were updated in 2019, and I believe it was the second half of 2019. I don't remember the exact month of approval of these updates.
I think
but
September or November.
I remember
So if you
that
read-
the new construction
read
of
that,
this house, which was approved in
he's saying
November
to go for it.
2019,
That it's
followed the updated design guidelines.
Okay, that helps. And she acknowledged, and even in this letter, that the original plan showed a parking courtyard between the electric gate and the garage, which should provide the needed additional off-street parking, right? So she's acknowledging that the original plans addressed this request in some way.
Okay.
Is that the way I'm reading that? Is that correct?
Where are you seeing it?
In their first paragraph, under the
Right
red
here.
box.
Right there. Read.
I mean, she says that she hopes that the commissioners will uphold the guideline. Anyway.
Yeah.
Sounds like she's also saying that, given the,
I mean, one way you read it, this is my personal.
Had an application that was approved on consent. That's hers.
Okay.
yeah, I think
Dealing with
Mario's
her
pointed out,
her personal
I think she's saying there's a courtyard behind the house
Okay.
after the Potter Cochere that helps with off-street parking. That's her position. Or at least it was as of the writing of this
Okay.
letter.
Oh,
Yeah,
I
she's-
see.
she's talking
She's
about
got two
this.
different things on this letter.
Yeah.
Okay.
So how do we reconcile that? Has she provided anything in writing that she supports the conditions proposed by staff?
No, but if you wanted to hear from the applicant directly and ask that question under oath, you could do that. Now, that's still not directly from her, but that is something that you could consider.
Yeah, that's
If
fine.
there's no objection to opening
No objection.
the public portion back up.
Yeah.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, so we had spoken about it, and we were sitting right there together, and she was going to stay to tell you that that was her position from the Central Gardens side, but she had to leave at 4. But we were sitting together.
We can trust we trust that that's exactly what you said, Doctor.
So we're saying that Shelley's saying she's in support of it.
Correct. That's what Mr. Core.
Okay.
In support of the approval with conditions.
Correct.
Yeah.
She's down here every month. We can ask her next month and just verify.
Yeah. Well, with that in mind, I think that removes any concerns I had.
Yeah. But they're opening themselves up for
Right.
whatever comes, because this is the precedent now.
And perhaps she thinks that the precedent set is a one of quality construction. You know, if you do it nicely, it's off the street at some distance, and you do it with nice materials and screen it.
Well, and I'll just to kind of reiterate what Ms. Love said, I do think that, and this is not about this case, just in general, you know, guidelines are guidelines, and that's why we have, you know, 9 commissioners and this discussion to really work through those things, and you know, looking at every case on its own merits and individually is something that is part of that as well. So I think that that's something that gives you guys the flexibility to have these discussions and make the determination for this case at this moment and with the.
I think the major thing that bothers me the most about approving it is that it's maybe been a year since it was built, and that I don't understand. I mean, I understand why that couldn't have been in a thought process while it was being done. Could you come back up and say why now, after a year or less than a year, you've decided that you need this? Whether, because you just built this house.
Yes, ma'am. So we've been using that little area, but the neighbors are still, some of the neighbors are still very angry at us for building the house in the first place.
Yeah.
So we don't get much grace from them. So that's what escalated this to your committee. Is that what you're asking? I'm sorry.
Basically, you grew into your home is probably, it's a question as to why after all of this short amount of time from the time of the building going up and the design having been implemented and constructed, is it so quickly after that there's this request to have another?
When you had ample opportunity, because it was not designed that far back and it was not built but last year, why that couldn't have been in your thought process in the design process?
Yes, ma'am, I wish it was.
Figured out it didn't work.
I apologize.
Figured out that their current design didn't quite meet the needs is what I'm in.
Or garage, and they've got extra space. And a driveway. I don't know. Okay. Are we done?
Okay, so I would just want to clarify the vote, because we did recommend rejection, but if approved, that these 3 conditions. So a yes vote is to approve the parking pad with these 3 conditions. A no vote is to reject the parking pad. So,
Correct.
all right. Mr. Winter?
Yes.
Ms. Strong?
No.
Ms. Love?
Yes.
Mr. Gill?
Yes.
Ms. Boyd? Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Chair Tucker?
No.
We have 4 yes, 3 no, motion carries. And our last item is item number 9, COA 2023-062, 739 North Evergreen Street.
Okay, is the applicant present? Raise your right hand. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes.
Would you state your name and address, please?
David Gaffney, 2210 Kings Row Parkway.
Okay, thank you. Have you seen the staff report?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you agree with the staff report?
Well, there's one small item in it that's indicated that I requested replacing 13 windows, and that's not the case.
Okay, we're going to show the staff report first, and then we'll come back to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Jordan McKenzie, staff. So this is for 739 North Evergreen Street. This is located in the Valentine Evergreen Historic District. This is a retroactive request for exterior alterations, changing the color of the brick and adding window shutters. Primarily, this is what the house looks like now. The picture that you saw just before was not a current picture. That was from earlier in the year. They have changed the paint. They have painted the brick as well as the accents that surround the columns. And they also added wood shutters as well. And that is to the extent of what we see in terms of the windows. The windows are still the same, but they added shutters. According to the design guidelines, the windows, the existing windows themselves and the openings and the material are the same. They haven't been replaced. And so the applicant is not proposing to do any new doors or windows. However, the real issue comes in when the shutters are being added. And that is not in line with the windows and doors design guidelines, as well as the painting of the brick does not keep in pace with the preservation of the original historic materials when possible. So as a result of that, staff is recommending approval with the following conditions: that there are no windows added, there are no shutters, the shutters are removed from the windows, and the brick shall be repainted back to its original color, the red with white accents and the original character and pattern as seen in the pictures. And there was a friendly amendment added that the applicant shall submit proposed paint colors to staff for approval prior to the issuance of the COA, and the standard, any change or deviation from the approved certificate of appropriateness will be submitted to Memphis Landmarks Commission for review. And if there's, that concludes my presentation. I'll take questions at this time.
Any questions for staff?
Madam Chair, if I may, the applicant mentioned you're in agreement with the conditions. Is that correct? But you said
He had one question.
Well, there was one small part in the report that said I requested replacing 13 windows. I was just clarifying. I have no intention of not replacing any. But
okay, so that's your only.
Well, as far as this goes, I have no problem with removing the shutters. Painting the brick would be pretty cost prohibitive for me, and I just I guess it wouldn't still restore the original. I had no idea. I know everybody said the same thing. I had no idea about this historic commission. I purchased a house last summer at a foreclosure auction. As soon as I got notified about a month ago, or maybe 6 weeks ago in April, I came down and spoke to someone in the offices upstairs. I submitted my application, asked them what the process was, and they basically said that just pay double the fine, basically. This would be reviewed. It's pretty much routine because it's new and a lot of people have done the same thing. There's several houses painted in the neighborhood. I had no idea this was an issue. So I did that, and I thought the matter was closed until this morning.
The issue with the windows you mentioned, if you're not replacing the windows, then that's not an issue. So.
I'm doing nothing with the windows, but just painting the house.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that point. So.
Which I wish I would have known. I would have gladly not painted the house and saved myself a lot of money in the first place. I love the historic natures of these houses. That's why I was excited about this house and restoring it and making it nice again. I just was unaware of the requirements of the painting, as it's common.
Did y'all have questions for the applicant?
I don't, Commissioner, I don't have a question, but I have a comment to the applicant. When I first saw that first picture of the home, I just said, wow, this is a beautiful cottage. Even before I started reading anything about the property. And then when I saw the picture, my heart just sank because it just like the the beauty and the historical nature of the property, to me, just to me,
My mom
had
would
been
agree with you.
destroyed with the shutters and with the white paint. So that's just what I want to share with you. Thank you.
Thanks. Oh, yes. I mean, nothing structural, but just.
But you
repair.
chose these shutters and you chose the color of
Yes,
the
sir.
paint and the whole thing. Did you think it looked better?
Yes.
Okay.
I thought it was improving. I mean, I like being able to renovate these houses. I've done a handful of them, and they're terrible shape. And I've seen a lot of houses like that. In fact, I've seen that design and have thought, oh, I like that. I want to do that. And when I saw this house, I thought this is the perfect place to do that. I obviously was a mistake.
Well, I mean, just a shutter, just for future reference, has to be able to cover a window. That's what a shutter's for. You don't have a shutter on there that could cover a window. Like cover the window entirely and be the same shape as the window. It's just a basic architectural principle for any future houses that you do.
Was the brick in any kind of disintegration? Like, was there something wrong with the original brick that you had to feel that you covered it up? Like, what was it about?
There were.
Or was it just, oh, I like
There were
the white?
Not terrible. There were a number of places where it had been patched, and it was noticeable. Prior to me doing anything to it.
On the front?
Various sides. There was the front left. I remember that. I think I remember something on the side. There was various places where there was some patchwork that had been done. Where just the mortar and some bricks repaired.
But again, this cottage was built in 1927. So it is an older home, it's a historic home, and you're going to find imperfections like that where you will see the mortar or patches. But once you paint brick, you're totally destroying, covering up the beautiful brick pattern and the variation of colors in brick, and that craftsmanship or bricklaying you don't see like that. And that's sad to see lost. And the other thing is that this is not what's best for the property, covering with a brick, painting it like that, because you're going to probably sell this property, and future homeowners are going to have a perpetual expense of painting brick that exists to withstand the elements of nature and weather. And that's unfortunate. And I agree with others who up here who have expressed this, but it's such a sad state to see the house like this, because it's just such a sad state. And it was, in my opinion, totally unnecessary to paint the brick.
Yes, ma'am. I understand. I don't disagree with any of that. I just wish I was aware before, and I would have not even questioned it.
Can we go to vote? Is there something else?
Anything? Okay. Any more questions, comments? Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll close it for, would someone like to make a motion?
How about this? Motion to approve COA 2023-062, 739 North Evergreen Street for discussion purposes. Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Discussion?
Yeah. I'll echo everything that the commissioners have said so far. The shutters are not appropriate, the paint's not appropriate. So I support the conditions.
Design review, yeah.
I support conditions. I have no questions. I mean, I'm kind of sad because the brick is going to be really hard to try to match. So, it takes some particular effort, and I think that definitely needs to go before staff, before a color gets committed to. Yep.
That was the friendly amendment, that the proposed paint colors needed to be reviewed by staff.
Definitely.
Yeah. Okay, are we finished with this discussion?
Yep.
All right. Mr. Gill?
Yes.
Mr. Winter?
Yes.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Ms. Boyd?
Yes.
Ms. Strong?
Yes.
Love?
Yes.
Chair Tucker?
Yes.
Motion carries. That is our last case.
That's it? Okay.
I don't have any.
Any
other
announcements?
No, ma'am.
Our next meeting will be 22nd? June something?
Yes.
Okay. May I have a motion to dismiss?
Motion to dismiss.